same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy. All my days, oh yes, I will. I count on one thing. The same God who never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now. No waiting. The same God is never late. He's working all things out. He's working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh, yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy. All my days, oh, yes, I will. For all my days, oh, yes, I will. I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all the days. And nothing can stand against. I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all days. And nothing can stand against. I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all days. And nothing can stand against. I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all days. And nothing can stand against. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy. All my days, oh yes, I will. For all my days, oh yes, I will. For all my days, oh yes, I will.
Okay. How are we all doing tonight? All right. That's the 50 to 60% energy level I like to operate at. Just barely above flat line. It's really gets me going. No, I really appreciate you all being here tonight. I know you can be lots of places on a Saturday night, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. I think what we're doing here is important, and I believe if you're here, you agree with me. So that's a very cool thing. We've got to gather like this every opportunity we get. And if you're watching us on live, via live stream or Facebook Live or Instagram, we really appreciate you joining us there as well. So that's important. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start off with a statement today, and I hope it doesn't shock you too much. I hope it doesn't come so far left field that you get afraid, but here it is. The world is changing. Some of you may not have noticed this is happening, but I've done some in-depth, extensive research, and I have concluded this is in fact true. The world is changing, which means many of the ways we used to do things are no longer relevant, they are no longer working, and many of them are no longer even appropriate for how we operate today. And really the primary challenge at hand is not that the world is changing necessarily, but that it's changing so darn quickly. Has anyone else noticed that? You can raise your hand. I won't call you out by name. Okay. Some of you are like, it's not so fast. Not changing all that fast. It's just changing moderately slow. I think it's changing very quickly. Has anyone heard the term, okay, boomer? A few of you have. Well, we have this cartoon here to illustrate that. We got a mother looking at her son on the computer. She says, back in my day, we actually went outside. And the kid says, okay, boomer. Okay, boomer, referring to baby boomers. And it has become sort of the catch-all phrase for someone who's outdated, out of touch, and totally, the world has left them behind. But don't feel bad if you're in that age range, because my daughter has said that to me, so it casts a pretty wide net. She really doesn't understand what a boomer is, so she thinks I'm one, so that's fine. Well, Aaron and I just got back from the Unity Annual Summit, which I let you know we were heading out on last week, which is the Unity Movement's mid-year meeting we have that's open to all people, leadership, lay leadership, and congregants as well. And this year it was held at Unity of Atlanta, so aren't we cute outside of Unity of Atlanta? Isn't that nice? Yeah, I think we're cute. So one of the big topics right now in Unity, and pretty much everywhere on the planet, is inclusivity. We, as the Unity movement, have what I see and many see as one of the most inclusive messages out there today, which means that the way we do things should reflect that. Wouldn't you think? If we have an inclusive message, the way we do things should reflect that. So every year, the Unity leaders, such as myself and other ministers and licensed Unity teachers, we have mandatory training on this topic, on inclusivity. We have to do every single year. We have to get credits for it. Partially because the language and the relationships and the way we go about this is changing so quickly that we have to stay up to date, but primarily because we need to be on the forefront of getting it right. Because Unity is so inclusive, we've got to make sure our leadership is on the forefront of getting this right. If people step into a Unity church and don't feel comfortable, we are doing something really wrong, which has been highlighted by something that sort of an acquaintance of ours said to Aaron and myself while we were at this annual summit. And this is a person, a woman, who probably visits more Unity churches than anyone else in the United States or the world, just by nature of her position. And she had attended both our Unity church in Las Vegas. When Aaron and myself were in Las Vegas ministering, she had visited us there. And she's also come here while we've been here and visited us here at this Unity church. And she said this: your church in Las Vegas was the most friendly, welcoming, and inviting church I have ever visited. She sort of just threw this out there while she was talking to Aaron and myself. And Aaron and I kind of looked at each other, and when you're in a relationship, you know how to say things with your eyeballs, and we both said this to each other, so I guess she did not have the same experience when she visited us at Unity of Boulder. So we asked her a bit further about why she felt that way, because it's very important to have a very welcoming and inclusive environment. So we want to know, why did you feel that way specifically about our Vegas church? Of all the churches in our movement, why our Vegas church? And we learned it wasn't because of the ushers she met at the door, and it wasn't the greeters that welcomed her, and it wasn't Aaron and myself, obviously. It was because of the entire community there. Every single person that was involved in that church, she said. She felt that everyone at our church in Las Vegas went out of their way not only to greet her and welcome her and say hello, but they genuinely showed interest in getting to know her and making her feel welcome. So she didn't feel like they were told to do that by us, or that there was anything else, forcing them to do that or saying you should do that, but that the culture just was that. It's just what they did. So I'm currently reading a book about what makes a healthy church. I'm one of these few minister nerds that loves to research what's going on with churches, so I actually read books about churches. So people say, what are you reading? And if I tell them, they're like, what? Thinking they're going to say, oh, Eckhart Tolle or something else. I'm like, no, it's this about church boards. I don't know if you'd want to read that. Anyway, so this book's talking about what makes a healthy church. And the author supports exactly what she said. the book repeatedly emphasizes that it is not the location, it is not the building, it is not the minister, it is not the staff, or anything else that we usually look at. It's not the finances of the church. It is the membership. Over and over again, the book says it is the membership, and they've studied hundreds of churches across America to see which ones are healthy, which ones are not, and it says consistently, it is the membership. If you have a healthy membership culture, you have a healthy church. They just go hand in hand. Everything spawns from the membership. So the book goes on to say, if the membership is into gossiping and has cliques or is judgmental and they really sort of like talk about people that come to the building, or they have a lack of commitment or a lack of faith, then the church is sick. And the book says the church is likely dying. So the person who wrote the book is a longtime pastor, and he pretty much says he can walk into a building and instantly know if their finances are decreasing or increasing based on the experience he has just by walking into that building. But if the membership is exemplifying the principles that the church teaches, then the church is healthy and thriving. And it makes sense because the membership culture of a church is what people experience when they first walk in. If you're going to increase your attendance, the person that walks in for the first time, the first experience they're going to have is the membership culture. That's unavoidable. You cannot hide them from that. You cannot shuffle them around all the people and get them into a seat and then shuffle them around the people and get them out. They're going to have an experience of the culture. And just about every single point of contact they have in their experience of being here is going to be with the membership culture. That will be their experience. So I was talking with a different minister this weekend, and he was telling me, he was talking along these lines. We weren't talking this topic, but it came up. And he said at his church, he was having a big Christmas service where lots of people come from the community that had never been there before. And he heard about this later on. A woman came through the front doors who had triplets. She had baby triplets in a stroller, and she was a single mother. And she came very excited to have the first experience with her children on this Christmas service. And someone proceeded to tell her that their pastor is so great at speaking, they really hope her children don't interrupt the things he has to say. And she actually came up to this after the service to him crying, and she said, I so loved what you said, and I loved what I heard, but I've just been hurt by the people here, and I don't think I could ever come back. So his message totally resonated with her. She was on board, but just that one point of contact, and she said she could never come back because that was the culture of the church. No matter what was said on stage, no matter what happened with the music, all amazing moved her, but the culture of the church was a painful experience for her. So I told you in Unity that our leadership has to take a class every year about inclusivity, which centers around inclusivity of race, of religion, of ability, of different income levels, everything you could possibly imagine. But right now the focus is on our LGBTQ plus community, gender identity, and pronouns. So this is sort of bubbling to the surface right now in our culture, and has been for about the last 5 years, I'd say, really become a topic. So I thought I could try to explain it to you, or I found a quick video which does a much better job so we can all sort of get up to the speed if this is something that's new to you. So we're going to watch this.
Pronouns are incredibly important. They're the easiest way to acknowledge someone's identity, and in order to respect all humans, it's crucial to use the correct ones. So here's our guide to using the right gender pronouns. Let's kick off with some important definitions. Gender identity. Your gender identity is a way to describe how you feel about your gender. This is one's internal sense of self as a man, woman, both, neither, or something else. Gender neutrality. Gender neutrality is all about not making assumptions on someone's gender identity based on the way they look or act. Okay, so now we've got the definitions down, let's take a look at some of the most common gender-neutral pronouns. There's such a wonderful world beyond the binary. One of the most common gender-neutral pronouns used by genderqueer and gender non-conforming people is they, them, their. But it's certainly not the only option. So let me explain. Some people use the gender-neutral pronouns ze, here, hers, and other people use theirs. There's absolutely loads of gender-neutral pronouns out there. If you want to know more information about them, head to our description and click on the link. Now here's some tips for using and understanding genderqueer or non-binary pronouns. Enjoy! Never assume a pronoun. If you're meeting someone for the first time and don't know which pronoun to use, just ask the person you're chatting to. It'll go a little something like this. Hello, new human that I'm meeting in a pub. I'm Libby. Nice to meet you, Libby. I'm Alex. If you don't mind me asking, Alex, what pronouns do you use? Good question, Libby. I use they, them. What about you? Well, thanks for asking. I use she, her. Anyway, should we get a pint? It's that simple. And if you're meeting a bunch of people, you can apply the same gender-neutral language. Instead of saying ladies or guys, try to incorporate language that isn't gendered, such as folks, pals, or friends. Basically, just don't go around assuming pronouns. Don't be that person.
Was that new to anyone for the first time? You afraid to raise your hands? Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. It's probably new to all of us on some level, as we're all diving in to this new world that we're facing. So I want you to hold on to something that she said, which is this term, beyond the binary. So just keep that in mind.
Hello, I'm Bob. This is Dino.
Hello.
We're going to do a song for you called Land of Plenty by Leonard Cohen.
Just working out the sound here.
Yep.
Got a good joke?
With the last name of Story, that's my last name. I should have some, but I don't.
How about a good story, Mr. Story?
I can't even tell a good story. Did that fix it?
I'm really honored to have Bob here today. He's my guitar teacher and good friend and fellow performer. And we're really blessed to have him here. He's a great guitarist and a great musician.
Could be dead. Yep. We'll do it without that. I have to capo, and it's kind of a weird thing. Why don't you let me play your guitar?
Okay.
And then you play this. We can make that work. Switcheroo.
Much better.
I don't really have the courage to stand where I must stand. Don't really have the temperament to lend a helping hand. Don't really know who sent me to lift my voice and say, may the lights in the land of plenty shine on your truth someday. I don't know why I've come here, knowing as I do what you really think of me, what I really think of you. For the millions in a prison that wealth has set apart, For the Christ who has not risen from the caverns of the heart, for the innermost decisions that we cannot but obey, for what's left of our religion, I lift my voice and pray. May the lights in the land of plenty, may the lights in the land of plenty, may the lights in the land of plenty shine on your truth someday. I know I said I'd meet you at the store, but I can't buy it, baby, can't buy it anymore. Don't really know who sent me to lift my voice and say, may the lights in the land of plenty shine on your truth someday. For the innermost decisions that we cannot but obey, for what's left of our religion, I lift my voice and pray. May the lights in the land of plenty, may the lights in the land of plenty, may the lights in the land of plenty shine on your truth someday.
Okay. It's always good to have a joke in the hole in case there's a moment of silence. So next time you could use this one. What is something you've never heard announced over the PA at a rock concert? Could the trombonist please go move their Ferrari? It made me laugh anyway. I guess that's all that matters. It's working somehow. All right, beyond the binary was a term we left with. What does that mean? Well, for us today, let's simply accept that we as humans like things simple. We like to be able to put things into nice little, tidy little boxes, into categories, into simple definitions to make life seemingly more simple. Things are light and dark. They are mine and yours. They are good or bad. They are right or wrong. They are Republican or Democrat, or they are American and un-American. They are him or her. But the world is changing, right? We already established this through lots of research that I did. And the classifications that we used to use to simplify conversation and interaction, we are now discovering are not inclusive of all people, and actually, they never were. An obvious example is the idea of good and bad. In Unity, we know people are not good or bad. They are just people doing the best they can with the circumstances that they have been presented with. And this speaks to our second of 5 basic Unity principles. We are spiritual beings created in God's image. The Spirit of God lives within each person. Therefore, all people are inherently good. But old religion made a very clear distinction between good or bad people, just as old language has made a distinction between male and female. Good or bad, male or female are both binary distinctions. Binary meaning 2. limiting it to 2 options, saying you have 2 options in this given scenario, one option or the other. If a person appears to be not good, then your only other available option is bad. That's a binary system. If a person appears to be not male, then the only other option you have available is female. And then you would deduce female because you've been only given 2 options. And it is easy for us today to recognize many other options are out there. Like people who seemingly are good and bad, or people that are seemingly not good or bad. They just are. As we are making the elevation in understanding around the idea of good and bad as it pertains to people, we are also faced with elevating our binary idea of his or her, man or woman, girl or boy, which was something our Unity co-founders, whether they knew it or not, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, were on the leading edge of back in the late 1800s. Clarified in this 18th statement of 32 statements that they released about Unity's beliefs back around 1920 when they released these statements. This is what they said. We believe that the creative mind, God, is masculine and feminine, and that these attributes of being are fundamental in both natural and spiritual man. And God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. So at the end there, they're quoting from the Bible. And these attributes of being are fundamental in both natural and spiritual man. So they're saying the masculine and the feminine are a part of our physical construct as well as our spiritual construct. They're not saying the delineation between the two. And it's an interesting here that it says, and God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And them is becoming the very common pronoun we're using for anyone. And I know a person who has a problem with that, of using them as the singular. Because now they and them is becoming a term for the singular as opposed to the plural. And they said, but I was an English teacher and that just isn't okay with me. Well, I'd put the slide up again. The world is changing, but I think you get the point. So natural mankind having the male and female qualities, and spiritual mankind having the male and female qualities. But how long has the concept of God being a man, God being male, dominated religion? For a very, very long time. And if you want to have fun with someone who still believes that to be the case, ask if God has male genitalia. It really gets the conversation going. Anyway, for thousands of years, there has been a binary concept of God dominated by the male idea of God. But more recently, as women have begun to claim their power again and take their power back, the idea of a goddess or a female entity has become more widespread, which is great. We get this balance. But we must not get carried away with the idea of God as a woman, just as we once got carried away with God as a man. God is not a woman or a man. And when we look at the words of the Fillmores, it helps us to remind us of this truth. God is masculine and feminine. Not that God is masculine or feminine, but that God is both masculine and feminine, which actually might be better understood as God in all of its vastness contains both the masculine and feminine aspects, energies, and expressions of life, but is not limited to either one. Following me? So, on this website that sort of talks about the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda, they actually define the mother versus the father aspect of God. The mother aspect of God is mercy, kindness, forgiveness, and unconditional love. No matter what we do, the mother will always love us. The father aspect of God is law, karma, and justice. The flaw or error in our relationship to God is our binary way of seeing the world. We hear about the feminine qualities of the divine and we attach them to a her. we hear about the masculine qualities of the divine and we attach them to a him. So if God is not a him or a her, is God an it? Well, this was a debate I had in my ministerial school class in metaphysics, where our teacher, Reverend Paul Hasselbeck, presented that question. He said, is God an it? People said, well, it feels really impersonal. It feels like a blah, like there's nothing there. They're like, I like to say mother, father, or I like to say him, her. It just gives me this connection. And he's like, okay, but is God a him or a her? Well, no, not technically. Is God a him and a her? Well, so is God an it? So he had this debate, and he said he spent a lot of years debating with that in his own head until one day, because he said we don't refer to people as an it, so it's a very impersonal thing for us. But he said one day he was in his house, and someone knocked on the door, and he said, who is it? And then it all became okay for him. I don't know. It worked for him. Anyway, it's an it. Isn't it fascinating that right around the same time we are beginning to bring into question the pronouns we associate with God, we are also bringing into question the pronouns we associate with each other. I think that's pretty fascinating. Because just as God is too vast to be limited to just a him or a her, so the children of God, made in the image and likeness of God, must also be more than just him or her. It sort of follows a natural progression. So we get back to this. The world is changing. It's not that femininity and masculinity are changing. It's our relationship to them. It is our understanding of them that is shifting. God has always been both masculine and feminine, and also neither limited to masculine or feminine. Because in reality, God is nothing and God is everything, which becomes very hard for us to wrap our heads around. Which means we are nothing, and in some way we are something, because we are expressions of the divine, which also might be hard for us to understand. So let me give you a statement that you can carry with you, that as you attempt to navigate this new world of changing pronouns might help you understand where we're coming from here. We are nothing but what we present ourselves as. We are nothing but what we present ourselves as. I can be happy or sad, wise or ignorant. I can be abundant or broke. I can be attractive or unattractive. I can be inclusive or exclusive, all depending on how I decide to present myself in this world. I can be a jerk or I can be a saint. Just ask Erina, my wife. It all depends on how I choose to present myself. But with this choice is the responsibility to work at always choosing to show up as my highest and best in every situation I can. Because really the only other option that others have is to accept us as we are. That's pretty much the only option we are given when someone comes into the room, to accept them as they are, which means we should be giving everyone our best. You following me? If the only option they have is to accept us as we are, then it's incumbent upon us to give them our best. It's unfair to give them our mediocre or our worst, because they've got to accept us as we are. So the only fair thing is to really give them our best. But let's also remember that changing the way we see the world, as we're being asked to do right now, changing the language and the way we interact with this world as it's happening today, it takes time. This does not happen overnight. And anyone who judges others as moving too slow, or that they are outdated, or they are archaic, or they are falling behind as we move ahead, or they're calling them boomers because they're saying they don't get it, those people are also operating from an old, outdated, binary concept of life. Either you're on board or you're off board. Either you're advancing or you're declining. It's a binary concept. So we have to be compassionate and patient with the process. And that's the part, I think, that is lacking right now in our world. People are being judged for not getting the pronouns right, for being too slow to change, for being archaic and outdated, and that's not fair. This takes time, and we've got to be compassionate and patient with the process. So I want to give you the rest of this video.
Pals or friends. Basically, just don't go around assuming pronouns. Don't be that person. Of course, there might be times when you slip up and get a pronoun wrong. We get it, mistakes happen. Don't make a big deal out of it, say sorry, correct yourself, and move on. The best apology is not doing it again. An even better apology is to become an ally. If you overhear someone using the wrong pronouns for a mutual friend, correct them. Be the ally that the non-binary, genderqueer, and trans people in your community deserve.
We're going to make mistakes in this process because it's new to a lot of us. We're all making mistakes. Ministers are making mistakes. We're trying to figure out how to do it right. Evolution, almost always, is a messy process. It just happens to be that way, and we have to be allowing that to unfold at its natural pace. So each of us has a responsibility to do the best we can in this process to keep up, and at the same time, allow others to do the best that they can as well. All right, that is the truth as I experience it. Now I want to take this into a moment of silence and meditation to really drop it down into the heart and get us centered in what's going on. I invite you to take a deep breath and just really release any tension that might be lingering in the body right now. Any sense of confusion or misunderstanding. Any sense of feeling out of place. Any idea of questioning why. Not just as it pertains to the topic today, but in our lives when we feel like things are moving too fast and maybe we're getting left behind with jargon or culture or style. We feel this urge that we're supposed to keep up, but at the same time that we just want to settle into the way things were. Sometimes we wish the world would just stop changing, so we can just rest into how it is and accept it how it is. But nobody's asking us to be uncomfortable, to feel out of place, to feel left behind. We're simply asked to keep learning. Never a point in time when we've learned it all or we know it all. If we ever think we've reached that point, it should be a sign. A sign that it's time to challenge ourselves once again. Yes, the world is changing, but it's been changing from the very moment we arrived in existence. It's always been asking us to grow and evolve our language, our thoughts, and our interactions closer and closer to oneness. And as we move along in this journey, we're simply being asked to recognize people for how they are, who they are, how they show up. Come into a place of acceptance. And if we're having a hard time accepting, perhaps it's a sign that we still haven't quite accepted ourselves. Maybe we haven't quite accepted where we are now, how we're showing up, how we're interacting, or the language we're using. So we drop down into this heart space, allowing ourselves to become still, become present with who we are, which should allow us to melt down these walls and recognize that we are everyone. Nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with us. We're all just travelers doing the best we can with the circumstances we've been given. None of us are at a place to judge the other as right or wrong, as doing it right or as failing. We're just travelers doing the best we can with the circumstances we have been given. As we allow this reality to sink into our consciousness and bring a sense of relaxation, that we don't have to sit in the seat of judgment, we can simply observe and enjoy the incredible palette that is life unfolding in front of us. We have a renewed sense of hope and faith in the process that moves on without needing our input. As we come back now from this moment of silence and meditation, we recognize the body, the space, and how we are oriented into it. And when we're ready, we can open our eyes. So in case anyone was wondering, I am Rev.Shad, and I represent myself as a he and a him. So if you'd like to refer to me in that way, I accept that. If you refer to me as a she, I will accept that as well. I will not take offense. All those will be perfectly fine. And if you want to spend a week referring to me as a she, I think that'd be a fun little test. All right. So our goal here with this service is to fulfill this mission. And we have a mission now. Our mission is transforming lives, inspiring people to make a positive difference in our world. How does that feel? Does that feel like something we could try to do here? Does that feel like something we sort of have been doing? I think it's something we could do a lot more of as well. And there's really two parts to this process. One part is taking ownership of our own transformation. Another part is facilitating the transformation of others. This is a two-part mission. So we don't become too selfish in what we're doing, but we don't forget ever about there's others around us that are struggling to achieve the same thing we are trying to achieve. So by supporting Unity of Boulder, we actually are fulfilling both parts. We support our own transformation in this organization that helps us grow and do our own physical transformation and spiritual transformation, while simultaneously we are supporting the transformation of those around us, not just in this room, but in this community, by the many ways we give. So we have several ways to give, and we also have several organizations that we support. A few weeks ago, I put forth that I wanted to take 20% of what came in, and I wanted to give it to a charity here in town. And then I asked for feedback, and not a single person came to me and said anything about that, whether they liked that or not. And I talked to a minister friend of mine, and I said, yeah, that just kind of was disconcerting. I thought we'd be jazzed, that we did some help in the community, and people come up and be like, yeah, let's do more of that. And there was just nothing. And he said, to hell with them. If that's what you're doing, do it. If that's your mission and that's what inspires you, then you do it until people understand that that's important and it's valuable and they should be excited about that. He's like, do follow the calling. If you were called to take a portion of that money and to go give another charity, you do it. And people will eventually understand. And I think you do understand. You just didn't think you needed to come tell me that you thought it was a good thing or not. But we are going to do that. We are going to take a portion of what comes in. We are going to give it to charities around the town because we have to help other people transform. And if they're struggling to get food or shelter, it's really hard to think about spirituality at that point. It's really hard to think about consciousness when you don't know where your kids are going to eat their next meal. So it's important that we are engaged in this community. We have a huge homelessness problem right here. We don't have to look very far to find starvation, to find struggle. And I think we should be using the gifts we have to help the community as well as helping this beautiful church we are in right now. If you're watching us via live stream, I invite you to join us in this giving process. We have many ways to give, no matter where you are. And we have many ways to serve, and we need to really grow this service right now, so we need people to help out. And if you're online, you're like, well, how could I possibly serve? Well, you could share this message on all the various social media outlets that are out there as well. We do have baskets in the rear of the room if you have something financial or physical that you would like to contribute to us. And we have those wooden coins. I don't know if you've seen those in the glass vase out there. If you don't know what those are for, if you are giving digitally, by text or by recurring giving or whatever it is, use that coin to physically take and put into the basket so you're still a part of that process of physically giving something. It's important to have that physical gift happening as well so your mind and body recognizes that. All right.
Is there any Beatles fans out there? All right. How about George Harrison fans? Okay, boomers. Here we go. So this is a song by George Harrison, actually written by George Harrison, but is on the White Album. Anyone remember that White Album? All right, that was a good one. I think we might have our guitar issues settled here. So this is a song, by the Beatles. It's "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." You all see the love there that's sleeping, while my guitar gently weeps. I look at the floor and I see it needs sweeping, still my guitar gently weeps. I don't know why nobody told you how to unfold your love. I don't know how someone controlled you. They bought and sold you. Look at the world and I notice it's turning, while my guitar gently weeps. In every mistake we must surely be learning, while my guitar gently weeps. I don't know how you were diverted, you were perverted too. I don't know why you were inverted, no one alerted you. see the love there that's sleeping while my guitar gently weeps. I look at the floor and I see it needs sweeping. Still my guitar gently weeps. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you.